Welcome back to the Framework Podcast, where you change your thinking, you change your life. I'm your host, David Waselkow, therapist and consultant, with my co-host and buddy Tyler Burke. How are you, sir?
Hello, sir. I'm great.
Yeah,
Feels like we haven't been here in quite some time.
we have not. Someone's been traipsing around the globe.
I have.
I'm
You should go to Italy. Italy's amazing.
so jealous. Really, truly, like
Yeah,
you went to like my bucket list destinations. It had to have been
it's awesome.
epic.
It's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So what have you been doing on this side of the world?
Well, besides being jealous of you playing around on the Amalfi Coast, just doing my thing, working with clients and improving my golf game, and at least allegedly, and
Trying.
trying and getting hammered at training as per usual.
Hammered at training.
Yeah. So kind of same old thing.
All right.
Yeah, continuing to seek those solutions and get better every day.
The journey is the fun part.
Mm-hmm. Journey's the only part.
That's pretty profound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what's the destination when you're dead?
Well, there you go. And that's how you start a podcast.
That's right.
Yeah.
Folks, you don't ever get there. You don't get there. And if you're trying to get there, abandon that idea immediately, because it's not about outcome. It's not about destination. It's about process, and it's about the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So speaking of the journey, yours is going to be very complicated in a relationship. If you have an encounter with the Reaper.
Oh, the Reaper.
The Reaper. And I think it's apropos here in October with Halloween coming up to talk about the Reaper.
Mm-hmm.
But what I mean when I say that is there is a Reaper. It exists, and it rips apart marriages and romantic relationships. And really what it is it's an acronym for rules that if these rules are a part of your marriage relationship, you are likely doomed if you don't fix them. And the annihilation of your relationship and everything that goes with it is coming if you don't identify and address these things. And this comes from years and years and years of doing this and seeing how the Reaper affects relationships of all kinds. A lot of this applies to other than romantic relationships, but that's going to be our focus tonight, marriages and romantic relationships. But you can, pretty easily see and apply these to other important relationships in your life without having to think too much about it. But REAPER, the Reaper, each one's an acronym. Each one is representative of a rule, a really, really devastatingly bad rule that if it's there or if it takes root is going to wreak havoc in your life and in your relationship and function like a Reaper.
And is likely going to land you in your office.
Hopefully, yeah. And hopefully
at best.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to land you in divorce court.
Yeah.
It's going to land you in broken heart, wasted time, wasted all kinds of things, and a lot of damage, because someone who's been living with the Reaper for a while, there's a lot to untangle in the aftermath. So this is also for those of you who are either in the divorce process or post-divorce, having had an encounter with the Reaper. And maybe this will help you sort of process and understand the why behind why things went really, really south, especially if you were one of these people who thought, we had such a great love story and we're really so surprised that it turned out the way that it did, so disappointed that it turned out the way that it did. It's very likely because the Reaper showed up. And so I want to really share this, not to scare the shit out of you, but maybe a little bit, if that's what it takes to motivate you into action and get into my office or get into somebody's office, right? but really inspire you and empower you so that if you can objectively see or notice that some or all of the reaper is present, that we go after that. And because the reaper can be defeated
Hmm.
in this way, in this life, the reaper can be defeated.
Hmm.
And that's what I want to do. I want to help empower you and defeat the reaper before it defeats you, because trust me, it will.
Hmm.
Unchecked, it will.
All right. Well, this has me intrigued and a little nervous.
And-
Hopefully,
yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. I like that you said that. So
You're welcome.
if you, I do, because the reaper starts to show up in some sort of subtle ways, right? It doesn't immediately look like the reaper that it is when it first starts showing up. So if we're a little bit nervous, that's good, because it means we're starting to attend to this. We're starting to pay attention to it. The best time to kill this motherfucker is when it's in its early stages, right?
Why don't they have, fucking marriage is this government contract. Why don't they have a required class prior to being able to do it?
Right,
Good Lord.
right.
You know?
Yeah, the only one that has a required class, and I don't know
Yeah.
what a requirement it is oftentimes it's part of the agreement that a couple makes with, if they're getting married by a member of the clergy, and
Mhm.
it's an agreement to be able to have the ceremony in that particular church. And they'll say that they require you do like 3 sessions of premarital counseling,
Mhm.
which I think is fantastic.
Mhm.
And that, quite frankly, is one of my favorite things to do with clients is premarital. And I rarely get to do it because people rarely do it.
Mhm.
And when it is done in those other settings, it's really, it's like wonderfully well intentioned, very often really poorly executed, and m- missing the opportunity for value in such a huge way.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you come to see me before you get married, then we never have to see the reaper.
Well, you're likely viewed as far more of like a firefighter
That's the problem.
than anything proactive,
Yep.
right?
Yep. It's another reason why we did this. I remember in one of the
Mm.
very earliest podcasts, I mean, most of the time, by the time I get in the game, it's because the wheels have already come off and it's a fucking dumpster fire.
Mhm.
And so we're trying to put out the fire and then kind of work backwards. Well, not backwards, but go back to origins of the problems that exploded that brought us into the office.
Yeah.
And that is problematic too, because when people come in, they're coming in literally in crisis, and they want help right away, solutions right away. Of course they do.
Yeah.
But now, using the firefighter thing, you got to put out all the fires first to get some stability before you can even go to what started the fires.
Yeah.
So I would much rather, in a perfect world, to your point, like develop a contract with the state that says, look,
Seriously.
if you're going to apply for a marriage license, we strongly encourage, or we require you to do that. That would be way too authoritarian and government control, but man, would it be beneficial.
Yeah. So for those pre-relationship, even
Yeah,
good info coming at you.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. A lot of value and worth here. And you got to
Yeah.
remember, we think that if there's love, we should just be good at this. And the thing is, nobody teaches this stuff until you come to therapy. It's just the truth. So come to therapy before the problems become problems. Invest in that before the wheels come off, because then there's no greater investment, because there's no bigger choice and no bigger mistake that you're going to make in life than picking the wrong person to marry.
All right.
Right.
Fuck you, Reaper. Let's go.
That's right. The Reaper. Here we go. Okay. So Bad rule number 1, the R in the beginning of Reaper, I call it the reciprocity rule. And I have a number of people who have this rule that I have worked with, that I currently work with. And essentially, the rule comes down to I should get back what I give in. And maybe I should get it back proportionally, symmetrically, equivalently, whatever it is. But the idea is if I put this in, I should get this back. The reciprocity rule. And it's a horrendous rule. It's one of the first components of the Reaper. And I'll tell you why straight away. If you've ever heard anyone describe a relationship as either conditional or transactional, that's because the reciprocity rule is in play and the Reaper's in the house.
Hmm. Hmm. So my first thought is, you said, you're expecting to get back what you put in. Is it also yes? Am I paraphrasing that correctly?
Yeah.
Uh,
Or demanding.
okay. What about expecting the other person to invest the same investment you're putting in?
Similar problem.
Similar.
Similar problem. Yep.
Shit.
Because
I knew
it's
this was going to hit home.
well, go ahead. Tell me what. Tell me why.
So I think that I probably have that some type of level of expectation in there that, if I'm really going to be making an investment into it, I want to see my partner trying or putting the same, matching my energy into the contribution of the relationship, because for me that would indicate that we're both committed to working on this
Mhm.
thing together.
Yeah, you just hit another magic word that is a part of the Reaper later on,
Oh,
expectation.
of course.
So we're sort of now double fucked here. But so let me ask you more. It's more than a rhetorical question, right?
Okay.
And I'm not trying to trap you. I'm just trying to lead us into an understanding of why. Because on the surface, it sounds like, well, what the fuck's wrong with that?
Yeah.
What do you have to occupy in order to be able to assess and evaluate whether what you want to have happen is happening?
What do I have to occupy?
Mhm.
What I have to occupy?
Mhm.
Use a different word. Nothing like
What
rephrase that.
sure. What position do you elevate yourself to,
You're giving away the answer.
well, in order to be able to do this?
Okay. So you're getting at where there's some type of control or authority or hierarchy?
Yes, in part, but you're judging the performance and evaluating the performance of your partner.
So I'm occupying the role of like a judge?
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep. And then you can kind of hold in reserve or give in abundance based upon your evaluative judgment of their performance and delivery of stuff to you. That is the operational
Hmm.
definition of both transactional and conditional.
Hmm.
And if a relationship is built on that, it's fucked. The Reaper in the house.
Well, okay then.
Does
Uh,
it make sense why?
well, I was just going to say, I was just kidding. I don't do that.
Well, now here's the thing. We've all done it.
Hmm.
I've done it. I've had it done to me. We all do it.
Hmm.
When it becomes a rule, when it becomes a pattern, when it becomes a belief, or really even worse, when we get confused and think it's an affirmative thought, that's when the Reaper is really flourishing, right? So every once in a while, this kind of thing can happen, and it's not necessarily damaging and deleterious, but when it becomes a rule and it's something that we're functioning by, whether it's known to us or not, then the reaper is
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
And notice what really is happening is that we're in a constant state of comparison, assessing, evaluating, judging whether or not the level of effort that we're putting in is being matched. And really and truly, the level of effort we would want to be putting in or investing in is a function of us, not them. And the level of effort that they're putting in is their choice and a function of them, not a reflection of us. And it's not a contest and it's not a competition. Reciprocity is essentially a benign, balanced competition to make sure that we're in this position of equivalence and nobody better give or take more than the other.
Hmm.
And so it makes it conditional and transactional.
So I'm thinking through like obvious scenarios or something of like literally you don't even have to be a judge, you just have to have eyes
Mm,
to see that somebody's not putting any energy in or
mhm,
something and you feel like you're doing a lot.
mhm.
But as you were talking, and I have a hunch this is probably where you may go, all we're really talking about is whether or not your rules are getting met.
That's exactly right, and we're
Fuck's sake.
yep, that's exactly it, and we're really talking about need fulfillment now.
Hmm.
So in what you just described, if you're not getting back what you think you're giving, what you really are struggling with is a need fulfillment problem. It's your responsibility to advocate for that need and to negotiate a rule to get to need fulfillment. But if you're holding affection, love, giving, whatever out here in exchange for what you want, it's purely transactional. And trust me, that's not love, that's not relationship, that's not anything. That's just it's transactional and it's conditional.
Hmm.
And nobody can get to safety, trust, reliability when that's the organizing principle.
Hmm. That does sort of make the comparison side of things look a lot shittier.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Right.
because to your, you even mentioned it where if it, if the Reaper's really taken hold, you can even call it an affirmative thought.
Mhm.
I'm over here thinking like, "Oh, fuck this. I'm like, you just shot a hole right in it.
Right.
That's fascinating to me.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, it really it is cover for the laziness that besets us in not negotiating real rules on the path to need fulfillment. It becomes this blanket principle to which we adhere that we think sounds good and appropriate, healthy, and functional. Well, sure, there should be reciprocity. Both people should be putting in and making a
Mhm.
contribution. Well, not really,
Hmm.
because underneath it is a conditional proposition. If, in the antecedent, if I give this, then the consequence or consequent, I should get this. But what do
Hmm.
most people, maybe I shouldn't say most, maybe I should say many, some, when you talk about love, it's giving without regard to what? Return.
You know,
The same thing with something like charity, right? You give.
for the tax benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the
Yeah.
transactional conditional one of it, right? But
Yeah.
you know, If you're giving because you want to be seen so you can go to the gala and be part of the social crew, then you're just an asshole,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you're giving and you're doing it silently without need for any kind of recognition,
Mhm.
that's really quite respectable, lovely, and admirable.
Can this sort of, uh, I'm not saying I do this one, but almost like in a mean spirited way, almost like, putting in energy or, trying hard at the relationship almost as like a fuck you.
Yep. Right. It can be covert protest behavior.
Yeah.
And it can also be a great way to invoke victimhood
Yeah,
as to
yeah, yeah.
why you're not getting your needs met.
Look at all the things I do for you, and this is what I get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing it can be on the flip side of that, to use one of your favorite phrases, I'm going to flip it on its ass, is it could be a person who is really feeling insecure and anxious and trying to demonstrate that they're indispensable. So then they can cite what makes them indispensable so they can argue against them not valuing me.
Hmm.
Again, all kinds of different variations on the same theme. I should get back what I give, which is the definition of conditional transactional.
Hmm. So, do you think that relationships can be unconditional?
Yes.
I mean, I feel like that's where you're going, but that seems like a uh, because there's condition when we get into a relationship, it's based on conditions.
Well, it can be.
Well, I mean, you pick your partner based on conditions.
You pick your partner based on criteria.
Okay, go.
Well, the antithesis of conditions is acceptance.
Okay.
So I'll be with you under these conditions. That's a decree. That's control. That's power. That's manipulation. We negotiate how we want to do relationship. That is egalitarian, right? Without condition, with acceptance.
Hmm.
And the one universal thing that human beings really need is acceptance. If acceptance comes with condition, we don't have acceptance at all. Now we've got judgment, we've got lack of safety. And I always say love in the absence of acceptance is torment. And that's what the Reaper does.
Hmm.
And reciprocity functions like a torment.
Hmm. I have said for so many years that very thing that I just said, thinking I was pretty smart. Uh,
I've done that a lot too, by the way.
yeah. Now I just have a microphone and a fucking camera in my face. uh, it's not a condition. We don't select partners on conditions. We select them on criteria.
Right.
That actually cleared up a number of things
Good.
in my head.
Good.
I'm glad we're recording this.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm gonna have to rewatch it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a big difference between those two things. It's kind of like the difference between expectations and standards. We'll get there when we get to the ass end of the Reaper acronym, but there's a difference between the two. Appropriate to have standards. Expectations, no, because that puts you in a one up, one down situation. That's a power dynamic. It puts you in a position where you're judging, evaluating, right?
Hmm.
Bad juju in a romantic relationship, a marriage relationship.
Okay. I like it.
Okay. All right. So,
There's going to be a share button on the bottom of this. So everybody can send this to your partner.
yeah, that'll go over really good. I get a influx of calls if folks need to come in, which would also be good too. So yeah, don't be deceived by the seemingly benign sounding thing of reciprocity. Generally speaking, reciprocity in lots of other places in the world is seen as a good thing. But properly understood this way and knowing how it actually functions, we see that it is not a good thing at all. It is the thing that operationalizes a conditional and transactional relationship, which we know in a romantic setting is bad. You
Hmm.
want to do that in business? Fine. That's what business is. It's transactions, right? Contracts establish conditions. There's an enforcement mechanism. There's a judge. There's an evaluator, all that stuff, right? We like to say that marriage is a contract. Well, in a way, yeah, but not that kind of contract.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay. E, second letter in Reaper. Um, you need to be, I need to be, someone needs to be the expert or an expert. Now, there's lots of ways that this one shows up. One of the most common and damaging ways that this one shows up is when the partner says, I'm the expert of you.
Hmm. In different words, likely.
In different words, likely, yeah. But functionally speaking,
Mhm.
that's the stance or position being taken.
Why would they do that?
Well, a multitude of reasons. I'll give you one example, excuse me. I was recently talking with someone who said they had just ended their relationship, long-term relationship, um, lived together, did the whole thing, right? But the wheels had come off. The relationship had become really bad for both parties for different reasons, dissatisfying for both. And one partner was saying, I really want to go to therapy. I really think we need to go to therapy. And the other partner was resisting that. And the reason why was because that partner was convinced that they're the expert. And as the expert, they declared that the problems were all with this person.
Hmm.
And even had the temerity to say, if we go to therapy and the therapist says what I'm saying is wrong with you, then I'm going to be really pissed because I've been saying it all along. And I just need someone else to agree with me because I'm the expert.
It seems like they'd want to go just to be proven right.
Well, you would think, yeah, yeah, in a way, you would think, yeah. But
Hmm.
in other words, if you need to be the expert or you're with somebody who thinks they're the expert or needs to be the expert, the rule that's in play there is if you defer, then we're good. If you make yourself small, you turn yourself into whatever they believe you need to turn into because there's all these things wrong with you and we're trusting them as the expert. The Reaper is in the house.
Do you see often in couples where probably a similar dynamic like this, and maybe it's the exact same one? I don't know, where there's almost like a parental
Oh, yeah.
uh, role happening,
All the
where the
time.
expert actually probably uh, treats the other one like a child.
That's exactly, yeah. I do all the time, and that's a function or that's well described by a very well established theoretical orientation called oddly transactional analysis, but that it's not the same as a transactional relationship, right? But in there, the idea is there's three roles that an individual can come out of in a relationship. One is parent, one is adult, one is child. And so in a dysfunctional relationship, instead of it being adult to adult, one person comes out a parent and sort of admonishes, judges, right? And if you have that going on, you likely have someone who has the I'm the expert or I need to be the expert, I should be the expert. And then if the other person's coming out a child, what you're seeing is protest behavior or fuck yous or avoidance or whatever the case may be. So yes, to answer your question,
Mm,
I see that all the time, and transactional analysis describes that really well. Ultimately, what we want is adult to adult relationship. And nobody coming out of the parent role or the child role or vacillating between the two. And when it
mm,
comes to literal parent child relationships, ultimately the goal in raising kids is to get to a place where the level of parental intervention goes all the way down to zero by the time the child is an adult. And then we flip models and we go to adult relationship model.
mm,
That, not to be redundant, but that's measured by level of parental intervention. And so if you picture, to get real nerdy here for a moment, if you picture a graph, on this axis of the graph, the y-axis, you have age of child. And on this axis, you have level, or I'm sorry, I've got that messed up. On the y-axis, if you have level of parental intervention, and on this x-axis, you've got age of child. When the child, excuse me, is first born, the level of parental intervention is way up here. It's at its highest, right? I mean, because the kid can't even hold their head up there,
mm,
right?
mhm,
So the level of intervention is at its highest. As the child ages moving towards adulthood, the level of parental intervention needs to go down, 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 down in a curve until finally here at adulthood, that level of parental intervention is zero. At that very moment, however defined based on the value structure of the people involved. Could be 18, could be 21, could be once you graduate from college, could be once you start getting bills in your name and you have to pay them,
mhm,
wherever that's marked. Then we go to adult relationship model, and both parties need to make that adjustment. And both can struggle, but they have to make that adjustment.
mm,
Now, when you chronologically age out, you're supposed to be adult. A lot of kids as adults try and parent their parents. And so they'll come out a parent or they'll come out a child or vice versa. So, yes, to answer your question, we see that all the time. So, if we've got someone functioning as an expert, very likely within the scheme of transactional analysis, what you're seeing is someone coming out of parent instead of coming out of adult.
mm. It seems like that graph would probably be flipped around in that relationship, where probably when that relationship started, it was adult to adult.
Yep.
And through whatever reason, that person started to parent their partner more and more.
hmm Yeah. And one of the really sort of pathetically sad ways that I see this in heterosexual relationships is, and we see a lot of this on, some of those really popular or famous divorce attorneys on TikTok.
Mhm,
They talk about this. I'm sorry, I can't remember their names, so I can't give appropriate credit where credit is due, but they'll say, the women are doing everything and the guys are hardly doing nothing. The guys go to work, they come home, they play video games or do their sports and whatever, and the the woman is doing everything else. They're taking care of the kids, they're managing the cooking, the cleaning, all that stuff. And there, the allegedly adult male is functioning like a child and is having an expectation that their wife mother them, take care of everything, be the parent,
mm.
right? Needs to be adult to adult.
So is that a little bit off topic of where you were going with expert?
A little bit. Another version of expert, for example, is how dare you question me on
Mm,
whatever the subject is. So, another problem in relationships is one person manages the finances and the other person has no fucking idea what's going on in the finances. And so then the person who has no idea, something happens or something doesn't happen and they realize, man, I really should know more about this. I'd like to be more involved. And then they start asking questions. And then the expert says, you don't know anything about this. Stay out of my business. This is, I'm the expert on this.
It seems like there's a lot of disrespect in this,
Yes.
like just lack of equality,
Hmm.
superiority.
Hmm.
You're not as bright, not as smart, not as
Right.
capable, whatever.
Right. All coming from a place of judgment, power, and control,
Hmm.
which then leads to really damaging feelings like bitterness and resentment.
Hmm.
And so we can focus on I'm loaded with bitterness and resentment. That's why I'm here in therapy. And then that's my problem, or that's a problem we have. And then I say, well, sure. And so let's acknowledge that that's the problem. But that problem, like feelings, is an outcome. It's a consequence of something else. So when we're starting in this, we've got to get really good at problem identification. And really, we haven't identified the problem when we're talking about bitterness and resentment. What we've done is identified a symptomatic outcome of something problematic. The real problem is one of these Reaper rules that's going on. Because if you're living and functioning under one or more of these Reaper rules, the outcome of that, the consequence of that is you're going to feel disrespected, minimized, resentful, bitter, betrayed, right? That is problematic, of
Hmm.
course, to feel those things, to experience those things. That ain't the problem. That's a consequence. That's a result of the problem. And the problem is over here in the rule. And notice that means that the problem is not this party or this party, it's the rule and where that rule came from and who wrote that rule and who's enforcing that rule. And so we remember when we're talking about the rules that we're the architects of this system. And if we didn't write that rule and that rule is inconsistent with our values, then we go to the negotiation table and we redo that rule or get rid of it altogether.
Hmm.
And really and truly, good therapy does that. In my opinion, lazy therapy calls bitterness and resentment the problem and then focuses only on that. And then we talk about how that feels and go nowhere.
Hmm.
Effective therapy, where when you really change your thinking, you can change your life, like what the framework does. First and foremost is elegant and precise in problem definition. And what we're saying here is that the problem in this podcast is the reaper. The problem is the rules. So we've got to fix the rules, because then when you fix the rule, the outcome takes care of itself. We stop feeling so badly, so negatively,
Hmm.
because the pattern got disrupted. Well, how did the pattern get disrupted? Well, because we rewrote the rules. And the rules that we're now living by are reflective of the values of the parties involved in the relationship and not grandfathered in because, that's how we always did shit,
Hmm.
or that's what we learned, or that's what we experienced, or somebody told us they thought that would be a good idea.
I kind of like that you have personified the Reaper because it's not either one of the people in the relationship,
Right.
right? It's a bad rule by at least one of the parties,
Yep.
and it's not just John's a dick
Right.
because he always right because he's
Yeah.
the expert, and that's
Yep.
probably how he gets.
Yep.
Uh, that's his what he's coming off as half the time.
Right.
But I appreciate that so much, and every time we have these do this, and every time I talk to you about all of it, is it's never the person, it's this third party rule that
Right.
that person has that's changeable.
Yep. It is. It is changeable.
Yeah.
And that's the truly empowering thing about the framework,
Yeah.
and about understanding what relationship really is, what conflict really is.
Mhm.
It's empowering because when we realize that relationships are all about the rules and that conflict is all about disputes regarding those rules, those are the things we can change. Whether that's your relationship with yourself or the relationship you're having with another partner. So if you believe you need to be the expert, that's a rule that you got to rewrite in your relationship with yourself. And the first place to go there is to say, all right, what's your why behind needing to be the expert? And I'll bet you that why is prohibitive in nature. You're doing maladaptive coping to try and get to need fulfillment. And it's all starting from a place of fear. And I don't want to, and I don't need to. It's a prohibitive thought. It's fruit from the poisonous tree. The rule has taken root in the relationship and it's wreaking havoc. And the reaper is ripping apart everything that you're desperate to hold on to.
Hmm. All right. Again, fuck you, Reaper.
Fuck you, Reaper. Okay, the A in Reaper. I call it the agreement rule. And the rule is we must be in agreement in order to be a couple or to be in love. Unacceptable if we disagree on things. So it's kind of like you're either with me or against me. You're either with us or against us.
Hmm. Very black or white.
Absolutely. Very tribal,
Yeah.
also. Why do you think this might be a Reaper element?
Well, this day and age, if one's a Republican and one's a Democrat, you're surely getting divorced.
That's it, dude.
Those
That's
two
a good,
fuckers can't be in the same room at period.
right. That's a great example.
Because I mean, it's and we're not even talking about disagreement. We're talking about good and evil,
That's right.
and they both see each other as the opposite one.
Bingo.
And
Yep.
how the fuck do you can't even have a conversation when you're in that
Right.
situation.
Right. I am so glad you went there with this. I truly am, because it gives me an opportunity to speak to something.
Oh God, you're gonna go on a Trump rant?
No.
Okay.
I'm not going to go on a Trump rant, a Biden rant, or whatever. But
That was a joke. That was a joke.
yeah, yeah. You know, so much is happening out there in this world in the wake of the Charlie Kirk killing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember in a previous podcast, I said to you that one of the things that was very surprising to me when I thought about the times in which I've had the biggest surges of new patients,
Mm-hmm.
new clients. First one was in November of 2016, and I was stunned, literally stunned. There was a flood of new patients, not just for me, but for all of the different therapists that I was working with in the practice. And it was because marriages, families, sibling relationships, everything were being ripped apart because of politics, because of the election, because Trump won and Hillary lost. And it happened again in the most recent one where Trump won his second term. A milder version happened again when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And I've been seeing it coming into my office. And here's how it's playing out. We know from social media that there are some people who are posting things online that are really offensive and offensive to others. Some even having the audacity to be celebratory that somebody was killed for speaking their beliefs, irrespective of what you think about that person's philosophy or religion or whatever. They were killed for speaking their mind. It's outrageous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the people who have gone online and celebrated this Others are going in there to make sure that they're found and identified so they get fired from their positions. And I have one client whose spouse was fired from their job because they're one of these folks that went online and said some really sort of horrendous things about how they were happy that this had happened to Charlie Kirk.
Hmm.
And that's just one of many examples. What I'm getting at here is that the agreement part of Reaper is really, it's something you identify a lot and talk about too, us versus them.
Hmm.
So when a person sort of releases or announces, let's say, their political position on this Charlie Kirk issue or really any other issue, what has really been happening since 2016, stronger than at any time. And remember, I was a political scientist and an international relations person long before this. So I've been in this for a long time. I know the long history. I've never seen a bigger division and how it is ripping apart family systems and marriages than I have in seeing this.
Hmm.
And what's emerging is people are saying, if you support this, I can't even deal with you, or I can't accept you. You have now crossed the threshold of unacceptable. We're in such disagreement over politics or religion or whatever it may be that we have to terminate this relationship because you're either with us or against us.
Hmm.
And I remember and enjoyed for a very long time a world where there quite literally was the free and open exchange of ideas, where people could argue and debate vociferously on policy matters, matters of morality, of religion, whatever it was. And then afterwards, go get a beer, be friends, go do this, go do that. And that era is gone, it seems to me. And when we see that the electorate is so terribly polarized and divided, and we wonder why that happened, in my view, it's because politics got so much bigger than it ever has been.
Hmm.
But this is just one example of the agreement rule, but it's a big one, and it is continuing to wreak havoc in marriages and family systems.
Well, it seems like we're not talking about being in agreement or disagreement. Uh, we always talk about separating person from behavior. We're talking about this is your identity now.
Yes.
It's you. It's you as a human being are this thing.
Mhm.
It's not even just something you believe, and that's how the fuck you
Right.
negotiate that or cut.
Right.
If the person is the opposite of what you are,
Right.
good
What do you do
lord,
with that?
right?
Yeah. And look at the unbelievable reductionism that is taking place there. We're literally reducing a human being to this one-dimensional unilateral thing, which is absurd on its face, but that's what's happening. Reductionism of a person into a single enemy entity or ally entity. In doing that within a marriage or a family system, it's incredible.
How the hell do you help somebody through that shit?
Yeah, right. It's tricky.
That bet.
It is very tricky.
Is there a special chat like tax for that?
That's a good business idea.
Seriously, like
Yeah.
wow, there's an up. There's a. I'm gonna
There's
have
an
to charge you more
upcharge.
for
Yeah,
this.
so we're gonna go to politics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it can be on all kinds of other things, agreements on, how to raise kids, how to do this, how we do this. And start noticing the interplay of the letters that make the word the reaper. If we've got this agreement rule and then you got somebody who has to be the expert, well, we're really fucked.
I would imagine those go absolutely hand in hand most of the time.
They absolutely do. And especially when it comes to politics, but when it comes to a wide variety of different things.
Mhm.
And it's a great way to then become dismissive of the other person. And then that leads to the bitterness and the resentment. And you remember when we did the politics podcast and was talking about, if approval is conditional and you have to acquire the political beliefs that your family or your parents do in order to get acceptance. Well, now you've got every one of the letters of the Reaper so far, and we've got 4 more to go.
Hmm.
And that's in your fucking family. The place where theoretically you're supposed to feel safe. It's your safe harbor that you're supposed to be able to return to where you're understood, you're loved, you're accepted. And I think that the heartbreaking truth is very rarely are we seeing that in families these days.
Hmm. It's sad.
It is.
Very sad.
It really is. So if you have the agreement rule, really wake up and pay attention because here's the thing. The message here is a good rule is we can disagree with one another and still respect each other, still like each other, still love each other, still be attracted to one another. Every human being has the right to self determination. And just because we have disagreement doesn't mean we have a problem. It just means we have disagreement. That's all.
Mhm.
People are allowed to see things differently. But if you're the person who's threatened by that, if you're the person who's uncomfortable with that, well, then you've got this rule. And I'm going to tell you, it's a bad rule, and the Reaper's in the house.
Hmm. All right.
All right.
Fuck you, Reaper.
Well, that's right. Okay. P. I call it the problem rule. And the problem rule is this my problems should be your problems.
Mm. We talked about chronic pain last time.
Yes. Good one. Go.
Seems like I think that was more of your point than mine back then, but it was, and I don't even really understand the dynamic behind it, to be honest, but it seems like I've known about that and seen that
Yeah.
before. Yeah.
Yeah. Trauma's another one, another obvious example.
Hmm.
So if my problem is trauma, then that problem needs to be your problem. And you need to attend to that problem in order to meet my conditions, in order to relate with me.
If you loved me, you would
Mm-hmm.
tend to my trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And your expectations would change, or your standards would change, or your needs should change. So if I'm invoking that my problems should be your problems, then therefore you shouldn't have the needs that you have because my problems eclipse your needs and should if you loved me. All power, control, manipulation, right? Now, designed by way of the why to accomplish something important to that person, sure.
Hmm.
Need fulfillment there, yes, for sure. Maladaptive, dysfunctional, damaging, dare I say at times abusive, yes.
Hmm.
Your problems should be your problems. My problems are my problems. Together, we can talk about those things and endeavor to write rules, make solutions. And sure, sometimes there are shared problems, right? But if you're invoking by way of decree that your problems should be their problems, what you're really saying is you need to defer to me, you need to acquiesce to me, because my problems are bigger and more important than anything else.
And that's where this whole thing fucking falls apart, is when you, in the decree,
In the decree,
rather
yes.
than a negotiation,
Bingo.
which would be the healthy way to get through it. Once
Right.
there's a decree, you're fucked.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And a person who declares my problems are your problems is a rule writer
For everybody.
for everybody. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm.
So yes, 100%. Decree, you're
Fuck you,
fucked.
Karen.
That's right. Decree, you're fucked. Negotiation, you're liberated, empowered, and emboldened.
That's probably that's probably the psychological definition of a Karen.
Yeah. Yeah. A
Right? Is
Karen or
getting
a
all
Ken.
pissed off at whatever the hell it is,
Mm-hmm.
decreeing
Mm-hmm.
their rules on
Mhm.
another human being.
Right. And to me, that's entitlement.
Yeah.
It's an absolute form of entitlement. So, you may hear me say this and say, "Oh my gosh, you're so mean," or you're lacking empathy for this person with this trauma. And I'm like, fuck you. I'm not saying. You're being successfully deceived. And it's under the auspices of empathy that the trauma person is actually victimizing and abusing others through their entitlement, thinking that their position is of greater importance and more value than the other.
Hmm.
If you have trauma triggers, it's your responsibility to manage those, not everybody else's. And by the way, you deserve nothing. Nobody deserves anything. So it's an entitlement problem. And that entitlement is made operational by these rules.
Hmm.
Now, even entitlement in the absence of judgment is belief about needs and need fulfillment or compelling unmet needs, right? It's just that it's being misdirected in the sense that I deserve this, I should get this, I'm special, all that. No, no, you're not. You really aren't. But you have needs. So let's talk about those and let's identify them. Let's learn how to advocate for them in a proper, healthy, appropriate way. And then let's enter into a negotiation and do an adult to adult relationship and hammer this out so that the rule is reflective of our values.
All of these things sort of fit together so nicely in this, dare I say, framework. Like everything, it all just fits, and it's very logical. It's very simple. It's very actionable. Um, and unthreatening.
Yes.
Like it's
Unthreatening.
really, I'm like, I continue to be, I've been listening to this shit for years now. And I continue to be like really blown away by it, honestly.
That's really cool because our relationship with the framework, it just continues to evolve, it continues to deepen. But yes, it really and truly is all of those things.
Mhm.
And one of the things that makes it elegant and practical and applicable and logical is because we've gotten really good at identifying the problem,
Mhm.
not being distracted by thinking something else is the problem
Or someone.
or someone, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, two more. One you've already referred to, we have referred to. E in Reaper, the second E, expectations.
Mm.
You need to meet my expectations. There's the rule.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that, right? So we probably don't need to discuss that further in view of everything that we've talked about, but it is a standalone rule and it's very much related to all the other ones.
I did like what it may bear repeating about expectations. And I would say it again. Um, shit, what the hell did you say, David? Yeah, that we shouldn't have expectations, but there's a what's the
But we
alternative?
should have standards.
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 You said that the first time, and I wanted to talk about it. That's fucking brilliant.
Mm. Thank you.
I'm not trying to be touching. I'm saying
No, I know. It's the idea. Yeah.
well, but it's like that's that's a very clear way to fucking state that shit. Because
Right.
you know, I think that that's been the missing. Anytime I've talked about expectations, I
Mm.
haven't really had a replacement for it,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
or a not replacement, but like the option or
Hmm.
the proper option.
Right.
Um, it fits. It
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. It is. It is. And I think one of the reasons why that's the case is because one requires authority and therefore judgment and assessment, and the other does not.
Mm,
Expectations are something against which someone is measured by an external party. Standards are what we possess, they are part of our values.
mm,
And the standard is the standard, meaning it's more universal, whereas expectations can get quite idiosyncratic. But it allows the situation to get infused with a power and control dynamic when it's expectations. When it's standards, the standard is the standard.
mm. It's good shit.
Yeah. And I think there's a covert manipulation when somebody protests on expectations and says, you need to reduce your expectations. That's them judging what seems like fair and appropriate rules. But if we adjust our thinking to adjust our lives, which is what happens in the framework, no one really would say, you really need to reduce your standards. We say that sort of jokingly
Mhm,
about a person who has, let's say, unrealistic criteria for dating
mhm,
or something else, right?
mhm.
Um, but when you say to someone, reduce your expectations, what you're really saying is, I'm now going to devalue you because I think that what you want and what you need is excessive. And the only way for me to get to that place is for me to judge you. But if we're talking about standards, that's different.
Hmm.
So remember,
Yeah,
expectations is about if you acquiesce to my decree.
there we go again.
Yep.
Is that like the is would I don't know if you've ever thought it in terms of this, but like like the point where the framework typically breaks down is not the framework, where the rules break down
Hmm.
is when it seems like the decree is the major enemy in the framework.
For sure. Well, the
Not of the framework, but like like
that the framework would contend with, yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is. Yeah. Because when we start talking about rules and what are the rules, especially when we get to the point of proposals, there's a
Mhm,
very fine point to be put on that because you got to be able to differentiate between proposal and decree.
mhm.
A decree is an announcement that a rule exists that is inviolable. In other words, not open for negotiation. And then there's a power and control thing that says you better play by this or else.
And you expect the response that you deserve.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the reaper is hacking away
Yeah.
at the very fragile
Yeah.
relationship that you have.
Yeah.
But then if you got a person, for example, who is anxious and insecure and they really want to be considered relevant, if not indispensable, by the other person, then they will happily acquiesce. And then all of a sudden, the decree becomes the rule of the land.
Mhm.
And now we're in this really horrendous dynamic because that acquiescing to that decree is not something that is sustainable.
That sounds very parental.
It's very parental, or on this end of the continuum, it's abusive.
Mm.
It's abusive. Well, there's a lot of people who are functioning in an abusive way and not knowing it, right? But it's there nonetheless. And there's a lot of
Mm.
people who are in an abusive situation and don't really know it. And what I'm here to tell you is that if the reaper is in your house, abuse is occurring.
Mm.
It really is. And I'm not trying to be some sort of loose language, soft, crunchy, hippie granola kind of thing and call everything abuse. That's not me. That's not what I'm doing. But look at what we're talking about here. How could it not be?
Mm.
How could it not be? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deep shit.
Final R. Um, restriction. Had a hard time writing
You
and
were excited
restrict.
when you read it.
You what?
You were excited when you read
Yeah,
it.
that's it. Restriction. It's a restriction rule. The restriction rule, again, like all these other rules, it can contain lots of examples, a lot of variants, but they're all kind of reducible to a common denominator rule, which is captured by the acronym REAPER. So the common denominator here on the restriction rule is I hold back blank to get what I want. So it's a form of game playing. The classic humorous, not so humorous example is the weaponization of sex and eroticism. I hold back sex when my partner's being a dick. I give sex when my partner is behaving the way that I think that they're supposed to be behaving, or because it's their birthday or
Mm.
whatever, right? That's the crass classic example, but there's a whole litany of
It's
others.
their birthday.
You seen those things on TikTok, like when a woman loves a man and it's his birthday, she
I've not seen that one.
oh, it's good stuff. To which I reply, every day is my birthday. Like, what are you talking about? Right. But
Yeah.
yeah. So I hold back X in order to get what I want. So I may hold back affection, communication, participation. I hold back on honoring agreements, hold back on staying true to fidelity, lots of different things
Hmm.
in order to get what I want. So, for example, if I have a reciprocity rule, and I'm certainly an expert, my problems should be your problems. Well, I'm going to tell you what, I'm not doing the dishes until he does this or she does that, or all the games that we play, right? You know, that motherfucker doesn't respond really quickly to my text messages. So you know what? I'm going to hold back. I'm going to see what happens. I'm not going to communicate for a while. See if we can get them to come toward.
Hmm.
Or I'm going to hold back my truth because if I say it, she's not going to fuck me tonight. All kinds of different variations, but really, it's all different examples of game playing. And the idea is I'm going to play by the restriction rule. I'm going to artificially restrain. I'm going to restrict. And that's the behavior towards which this goal that I'm in pursuit of is directed. Because, all behavior is goal directed. So if the behavior is restriction, the goal is still to accomplish something. If that is the rule that you're playing by and the behavior that you're engaging in the relationship, the reaper's in the house.
That sounds eerily similar to the definition of punishment.
I wonder why. Go on.
Right? I mean, is that not the operational definition of punishment, is withholding a
Yeah.
reinforcement,
Yeah. Well, one of them.
positive reinforcement?
Sure.
Which is typically done for some type of behavior change.
So the theory goes,
I don't know why else you would punish someone in a relationship.
ego, to be the expert.
Oh, okay.
So
Hmm.
I'm going to continue being a dick to you until you change your behavior. You don't deserve anything better than that.
Mhm.
You're so problematic. You're so bad to me. You're such a failure as a girlfriend or as a wife.
You're getting what you deserve.
You're getting what you deserve.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Huh.
And if we go to therapy and the therapists agree with me, I'm going to be really pissed. My jaw was on the floor when I heard that one, but I know that it to be true,
Hmm.
meaning that happened. But that kind of thing, that kind of game playing,
Yeah.
it happens all the time.
Hmm. It's too logical. I'm serious.
Guilty. Yeah.
It's so I don't know. I've already said it. It's so logical and actionable. It's stupid.
Yeah. So now let's be
Not simple. It's simple, but not easy.
right. Well said. And keep in mind, this is 30 plus years of experience seeing all these different types of things, and for your benefit, reducing it to its essential elements so that you have a set of navigational beacons to utilize in trying to discover or determine whether any of these things are part of your relationship. Right.
Mhm.
So when I've identified these rules, we've said this a number of times today, there's a multiplicity of examples of these things. And some are overt, some are covert, some are direct, some are indirect, some are like subtle, some are not so subtle. But what the rules here do for you, as stated, is help you find a conceptual lens to look through such that when you're examining the patterns of interaction and communication in your relationship, you then, through this conceptual lens, can start to see these things if they're there. So I am making it sound simple, and I'm trying to offer it in a simple way because I believe in parsimony and elegance and, what's the core of this, right? But the application out there in the wild, it's tricky, right? Because you have to be able to recognize, oh, this is that, right? And how these things show up may look very different than how we've described in the examples that we've been talking about. But that's why having these as specific rules and principles, I think, is so powerful and so useful, because it becomes the foundation from which you can operate to ascertain and evaluate whether this is an example of that.
Hmm.
And if you're uncertain, you reach out and you let me know and you make an appointment. But this is your compass to start navigating in a very thorny and tricky wild, because a lot of these things are going on and we don't even know they're happening, which is another reason why I'm doing this. Remember, many rules that we have and that influence patterns of interaction and communication and relationship, including relationship with self, exist in the blind arena. And that's where the reaper loves to live, in the dark, in the blind arena, unbeknownst to us. And the other thing that we're really good at as human beings is talking ourselves out of the fact that this shit is happening,
Hmm.
because we don't want to be that person. We don't want to be the one that has to admit that we've permitted this shit to go on, or that we've done this shit. So we're really good as human beings at negating and denying that these things are happening. And that's why those rules flourish in the darkness of the blind arena.
Hmm.
But nonetheless, they wreak havoc upon your marriage or your relationship. So not only is this compass, but this thing is illumination. It's designed to shine light on those dark corners of your relational life, to turn the lights on in the blind arena so that we can see. You know it's there because of the pain that you're feeling. You can't match the pain with the problem. And that's what this is designed to do.
What you should do is make a test, like a quiz,
Hmm.
like a single question that would expose one of these things, or you know what I mean, for each one of them or something.
Huh.
That'd be an interesting thing, because I think it's like, to your point, it's probably easier to see in other people than your own self,
Totally.
obviously. But
Yeah.
I think sometimes it just becomes people's norm,
Of course.
because a lot of these things people probably experienced as children too.
Yes, they did.
So they just expect it, and maybe even found a partner who was going to do it to them too,
Right.
or
Because it's
something, right?
familiar.
So that they might just be their absolute norm.
Hmm.
And that might be something to talk about
Hmm.
at some point or something.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I do my best.
Well, yeah, that would be very fascinating, daunting, um, clever, kind of an assessment.
It'd be an interesting thing, yeah.
It really would be.
Mhm.
Yeah, we got to reach out to some testing psychologists, because maybe there's, yeah.
I'd just ask AI to do it.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah.
Little chat GPT.
GPT.
Yeah. All right. So the Reaper. Um, if any part of this is going on in your relational life, you need help. You really do. And the fact that it's happening and the fact that you need help says nothing negative about you at all. It doesn't say that you're stupid or foolish or anything like that. It says you're human. Uh, these things happen, and you're not in possession of any of the expertise needed to unfuck this. That's why you go to therapy. You don't go to therapy because you're broken. You don't go to therapy because you're defective. You don't go to therapy because you're fucked up. You go to therapy to understand what the rules are and how to navigate them, to do really good at problem identification and then move to solution. And that's what the framework does. So if you're able to ferret out any or all of these aspects and know that the Reaper is present, there's help. there's help. You don't have to live like that anymore. You don't. And you go to see a therapist or you come to see me, and then we'll untangle it together. But beware of the Reaper, because the Reaper is real and it destroys otherwise, at least potentially, really lovely, wonderful relationships, marriages, friendships. It just does. So be mindful.
I love it. I felt like today, and maybe it's just because we haven't been together in a while,
Yeah.
but that felt possibly more educational than many of our other episodes. Maybe it was
Mm,
just hitting home for me. I don't know,
mm,
but
mm,
I really appreciate that.
yeah. Thanks. Me too. Yeah. It's it's sort of one of those moments where I realize that we talk so much about the rules, but we haven't done a whole lot of providing examples of what rules are. We even talked about how prohibitive thinking writes bad rules
Hmm.
and what those prohibitive thoughts are and the bad rules that can emerge. But in thinking about always talking about how relationships are all about the rules and conflicts are all about the rules, and in working with my clients who are challenged by this idea, like, how do I find my rules? And we have a way to do that, and that way is effective. It's unique, it's different for every person. But I thought, there is a set of characteristics that wreck relationships that I've seen thematically over a long band of time through a
Hmm.
diverse range of patients. And to be able to teach on
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
and to leverage the experience and the expertise that comes from that, I think has a lot of value. So
Totally.
that is pretty cool.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, off to, is it barbecue tonight? Are we gonna do
Eh,
barbecue?
eh, How do you say no to that?
I don't know, but it just sounds really fucking good.
Barbecue time.
Barbecue time and hoist a few.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Great
as
to be
always.
back in action.
Yep.
If you have comments, if you have questions, let us know in the comments, whether it's on TikTok or YouTube. If you have stuff you'd like us for you to cover that we haven't covered yet or to cover in greater depth, reach out, let us know. We're still looking to do a Q&A podcast where we
Mhm.
get a bunch of listener questions and then just kind of contend with all of them and kind of a really diverse smorgasbord type of a thing. So
Mhm.
you got something you're working on, something that you're confused by, struggling by, or an idea that you have, or a critique, it's welcome. So leave a comment, let us know. We'll be happy to incorporate it.
Yes, sir.
All right. The framework, baby. You change your thinking, you change your life. Have a good night.